Alright, I'm back for part 2. I am going to try to do things a little bit differently. I was able to encode and record my first part of this video using my new computer instead of my old computer, and it went much faster. So I'm going to try and record this one in a higher resolution so you can see a little bit more detail, and we'll see how that goes. This one shouldn't be as long as the other one, so the video shouldn't be, too incredibly long anyway. So I wanted to step back one step and show you guys how to spread these open again, because I realized in the last video I kind of covered that up while I was recording. So I made some more. I'll move this over a little bit so you can see. I have some here that are ready to be woven. Here's the beginning of the chain. And then these are ones that I'm going to spread open. Someone recommended to me, and I forgot all about this, I usually just use my little tiny round nose. Now that I also move the camera closer to me so I can show you these. I usually just use these to spread them open, okay? But you have to push these open to spread them. They make split ring pliers. Mine are a little funky because mine have removable heads, but they make fixed ones that have tiny little tips. Can you see that? And when you squeeze them, they open. So you could use something like this to spread them open as well. You can also kind of do it by hand, but I just wanted to show that there's a difference between squeezing to open and spreading to open, right? I'm just going to use my old regular ones because I'm good at that, but basically, make sure I get this kind of centered. Basically, you got a ring there. I try to kind of put the seam on the side when I stretch it. It doesn't really matter, but, and then I just stretch it. I think it makes a little more sense. Let me do another one just so you can see. It's fine silver. It's pretty stretchy. Kind of does its own thing. Oops. Okay. You want to stretch them. You don't want to go too crazy. Let me do one with. I'll do one with the split ring thing to show you kind of how it works. Mine are a little messed up right now. They don't want to stay. I don't know what's going on. They don't want to stay on this. See, works pretty much the same. Since mine are removable, they're a little harder to keep on the device, but they do the same thing. And actually, I think it is a little bit easier to squeeze to open it instead of doing it the other way around. Get the idea. Okay. So, really quickly, I'm just going to show you these. I'm going to zoom in on these so you can see them. So there's the little links that we're going to use. Here's a chain that I already started. It's a double weave. I just wanted to kind of show it to you. I go ahead and, just like in the last video when I talked about weaving, I go ahead and do the first few rings together as single loop. This is the extra piece of wire I talked about holding it together. This isn't, in this case it's stainless, but we're going to use brass on the next one. I do single loop chain for about 3 or 4 courses, and then I go back and start doing double. So this back here is single, double. You can keep doing single like I mentioned in the last video, or you can go ahead and do double. I like the way this looks better as double loop than single loop. Single loop ends up looking looser again, like I mentioned last time, and it looks more like a knitted type chain. It kind of starts to look like a wheat chain, the ones that kind of are twisted, and I have some samples of that I bought from Rio that I can show you. In fact, I'll pause right here and I'll show you some examples now that my camera's closer to the actual work surface. So let me pause it and I'll be right back. Okay, here is the... I'm going to try to lay these next to each other so you can kind of get an idea. Here is the chain I'm showing you how to make today, okay? It ends up being kind of square. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see it. It ends up being kind of square. Oops, there we go. Can you see how it's kind of square? I like that. It stays this way even if you run it through a wooden draw plate. If you want it to go more rounded, then you're going to have to pull it through a metal draw plate, and then it's going to start rolling the edges down and making it look a little more rounded. I prefer to leave it kind of square. I think it works better that way for me. But anyway, so that's what that looks like. This is, really quickly, this is the chain from Rio. Foxtail chain. You can see the difference. It's more rounded, it's smaller. I could pull this down again if I wanted to. But this one from Rio is made with smaller links. So if any of you want to try to do 24 gauge wire or 26 gauge wire, you might actually be able to get it down to this size. My work's a little bigger, so I tend to go for a little bit bigger chains. So that's that. I'm going to set these right here. It'll probably refocus on that. Yeah. I also wanted to show you, they make, this is another type of woven chain that you can make yourself, and I might make a video on this. I don't weave this one quite as much, but this is a wheat chain. Let's see if I can, it's really shiny. I just bought it, so it's going to be kind of hard to see it. It looks similar, the weaving method's just different. Okay, so a lot of these all look, I'm not going to unravel that, but I'm going to set that one kind of down right there and you can kind of see it there on the edge. A lot of them look similar, they just all have slightly different, you know, variances. Then what I was going to put out here, just to give you an idea, this is a standard, if I can get the big giant loop of it out, this is a big thing of just normal snake chain. Okay, so this is kind of the differences between all of them. Let me, here. I'll kind of go in there and show you. So the top one here, snake chain. Foxtail chain that I'm showing you how to weave today. Foxtail chain from Rio, and then this is a wheat chain. There are, a friend of mine online and I have decided, and she warned me of this and she was right, there are different versions of this chain from Rio if you like this chain. It looks like the woven chains, but it has a little bit of a twist to it visually. Be careful where you get it from. I've learned that the chain that's made in Italy is a little nicer than the chain from the US. I shouldn't say that. But it just depends on the supplier and who's making it. You'll have to kind of play around with it. So, you know, my suggestion is if you're going to buy these chains, I wouldn't buy a ton of them at first. I'd buy enough to maybe make a chain for yourself, but then I would buy it to see actually if you're going to like the way it looks. You may not like the way some of these look, and then you spent, you know, $100 on something and you don't like it. So I'm going to take these out of the way. I'm going to leave the one we're working on here just to show you. Really quickly, I want to show you the difference between the standard foxtail chain that I'm showing you in the demo and a piece of darkened chain. Similar, right? Just different colors. You can darken the fine silver. I think a lot of people think it won't tarnish, but or it won't age with the liver sulfur, but it does. And you can see I just made a little, with a little piece of tubing, I made a little thing and I forged out some hooks to go on the end. Those are the hooks. I don't know if it's going to focus. I'll move away. There, now you can kind of see them. It has a little pendant thing there. So anyway, that's kind of the difference between the two. I just wanted to show you the difference in the colors. I'll be right back and I'm going to show you how to weave the chain. Okay, so got my links. I'm going to go ahead and cut a piece of the 20 gauge brass as my little starting holder. You don't need very much. I just cut a little piece here. Let me zoom out just a little bit. Adjust my little mat here so you can kind of see. I'm just going to go ahead and kind of fold this. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're just trying to make a little holder here for the chain. This chain's a lot holder to hold onto, so I'm just going to make a hook. Okay? I'll leave that right there just for now. The hardest part on this chain, I think, is getting it started. So once you get it started and you can get all the pieces, you know, going together, it goes a little bit faster. So I think the hardest part here is getting the first few links together. Go ahead and grab one of the links. I'm trying to watch this and do this in the camera at the same time, so we'll see if this works. I'm going to take this link and I'm going to slightly, you don't have to do this. This is just something that I've kind of learned. I take it, I kind of bend it a little bit in the middle, not very much, okay? And using your weaving tool, I put it on top. Like I said, this is the hardest part. I put it on top. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out just a little bit more. It'll give me more work room. Got this little mat here. Okay. There. So I'm going to, I guess the easiest way to do this is to put it in your hand and push. So I've got the link on there, and then I'm going to push a little bit, and I'm going to fold that link up to where it makes, to where the ends come together. Okay? Can you kind of see me doing that? That's what it looks like from the side. Push, 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 push. Don't push it all the way together. You just want to get it close. Okay? So then you're left with something like that. It's not perfect, but it'll work. Okay? Now I've got a loop here and a loop on the other side, and if I rotate it 90 degrees, I've got a loop there and a loop there. So you can see I didn't bend it perfectly, so I'm gonna, the side that I didn't get very perfect, I'm gonna use that as the very beginning or bottom of the chain. So I'm now going to take my little piece of brass, I'm gonna run it through there. Can you see how I'm doing that? And then that becomes the holder for my chain. I go back with some pliers, if I can find my pliers, and I twist this wire up in the back just to kind of give me some stability. So back here I'll take some pliers and I'll just, I know it fell off, I can put it back on, it's okay. I'm going to twist this together to give it some structural support. Okay? Remember, what we're doing right now is what you're going to end up using later on to pull the wire, pull the chain through the draw plate. Okay? I'm going to slide it back on there for now. Okay, so we're left with, oops, fell off again. Oops, I did that wrong. Let me do it the other way. Ugh. Told you the beginning part of this is a lot harder than anything else. Okay, so we've got, can you see that? Link, kind of new base with the brass, and that little link there. Okay, now to do a single loop, all we're going to do, I'm going to leave it here so you can kind of look at it. I'm going to get another one of these links ready. I kind of push it together. If they're not pushed together enough, you can kind of manually push them together. Sometimes you got to push them together a little bit more to get through the chain. Okay, so there's a new link. I'm now going to, and I'm going to try to show this because this is the most important part. You're going to take that link. You can see that. There's the other link. And you're going to go through the loops. And I'll show it again here in a second. Let me just push it through so you can see it. So I've gone through. Can you see that? If it'll focus. May not want to focus. Come on, camera. There we go. Link's gone through the top part of that hole. I'm going to go ahead and put it in there. You basically just put it in and then bend it up again, just like we bent the other one up. Try to get them as centered as possible. Get the, what I mean is get the link in there as evenly as possible, and then just bend it. Because this is fine silver, it bends up really easy. Can you see that? Link inside of a link. Okay? Now, the little tool in this instance comes in handy because when you bend these things up, I rotated the chain 90 degrees so you could see the front end of the links. This link now is really not very open very much, so I'm going to need to stretch it to get the next link in. So what you do here is you put the little tool through that top, get that out of the way, that top part, can you see that? And you push it, and you just kind of get it together. You can also kind of push the chain together on there, okay? And then pull it out, and then you have a much larger, rounded loop. See? So I'm going to do maybe two more. Actually, I probably only need to do one more. Let me get it through here and I'll show it to you again. Again, this beginning part is the hardest. I'm not just saying that, it really is. Okay, got the third one in there. I'm going to put the tool through there just to... Don't be afraid if you're weaving these and this top link gets distorted on the top. Don't be afraid to, you know, against your jeweler's bench or a piece of wood or something, or even like a burnishing tool. Sometimes on the top there where we're pushing down, it leaves like a point and it's too spiky. Just push that in and burnish that up against that tool that you made and it'll smooth that out. This fine silver is so soft it doesn't really matter, okay? So basically that's how you would continue to do single. I didn't mention this earlier. I don't like single with this chain because these links are so small and they're so soft that I have found that when I do single with this type of chain and I try to draw it down, it tends to kind of pull apart in spots sometimes, and I've actually ripped chain apart. So because, you know, we're people and we're not machines and we're trying to make these things to look like things that you can purchase, I've just learned that the double weave for me is better because when I go to draw things down through my wooden draw plate, I don't have the risk of it, you know, one of the links bursting and the whole chain falling apart. The double weave is tighter of a knit, and it's, I don't want to say it's stronger, but I think it is stronger by nature just because you've got more wire per, you know, per inch than you would with a single weave. You can keep doing this. I think if I were going to do single, I probably would jump up to 20 gauge and do it that way. Be a little bit thicker of wire and be a little bit stronger. So what I want to show you though is if you're getting ready to do double, this is just like the other chain that I showed the other day. Instead of going through there, you can kind of see that link, that's the in link. We're going to go through this one behind it. So to get that ready, you kind of push the top one down, and I know that's hard to see, and I'm going to take my new little tool that I've made and I'm going to push it. Can you see what I'm doing? Not through the top one, but the one behind it. I'm sorry, I went off screen just for a second just to do this. Let me get it pushed through and then I'll show you. So if you can see that, let me see if I can, my horrible pink hands. Can you see that? It's not going through the top one anymore. It's going through, here, let's see if I can get closer. There we go. It's not going through the top one. It's going through the second one. See that? We're not going to go through there. We're going to go, come on camera. We're going to go through, I'll move back a little bit. We're not going to go through that end one. We're going to go through the second one. And then you just keep doing the same thing over and over again. So let me really quickly put one through there. Oops. Maybe. I can't always get this to work as fast as possible. Okay, my camera keeps dying for some reason. I'm not quite sure what's going on. So, really quickly, there's the chain. Alright, I've got double weave going on through there. I'm going to rotate it just a little bit so you can see it. There's the end loop, and there's the loop we're going to go through, that second one. I noticed two things while I was weaving. This little tool that I made, I think the diameter of this tip, which I said was like 11 gauge, I think it might be a little too big, just a little bit. If you can't find any wire that's 11 gauge and you find something that's a little bit smaller, I would probably go with that. It might actually be a little bit better. Swelling it out of shape is not a big deal. You're going to compress it back down when you pull it through the draw plate anyway. And I think having it a little too big, for those of you that have never done this, might actually make it a little easier to get the wires through one another. You're going to have to experiment. I probably would want it to be a little bit smaller. But anyway, the other thing I noticed is every time I put a link through here, I'm trying to make the motion of the link, before I do anything else, I go through the top to swell that out, into a more rounded shape. That helps hold it together. So what I mean by that, and I've got a little link here, I think the camera's still recording, it keeps shutting off for some reason. I'm going to, let me zoom out a little bit, just so you can see. I'm going to take a new one. I'm going to push this through that second area. This is why I think the thing's a little too big. Actually, it's not that too big, because these are kind of hard to get through here. So, can you kind of see that? There's the new link. I'm going to bend it up, like I bend all of them up. I got it a little off. You can kind of fix that. And before I do anything else, I'm going to pinch it up. And before I even try to go through that second loop, I'm going to go ahead and put this through the very top. that swells the top of the chain up and it rounds it out. So then every link after that looks the same. Then I can go ahead and push it through the second one, okay, just to swell it a little bit so I can put the next link in. So that's kind of how that goes. Anyway, that's kind of, I'm gonna see if I can get it up close. It's kind of what it looks like. Looks pretty good, actually. That's on one side. That's on another. Now, just for the sake of showing you what's going to happen, I'm going to pull this down really quickly in my draw plate. And I'm going to come back and show you what it looks like after I've drawn it down. I'm going to use these lower ones that I did before. Okay, so the big ones aren't going to work in this case. So I'm not going to show you how to do this again. I'm just going to do it really quickly and add it at the end. So I'm going to pause again, and then I'll show you what it looks like when I compress it a little bit. Here's the chain now that it's been drawn down. Oops. And get it to focus. Okay, looks much better. I don't suggest you just randomly pulling this thing down and then going back and weaving, because it's going to cause a big bump right there. So I usually don't pull these down until the very end, but since this was a demo one, I wanted to kind of show you. It's almost like wire right now because it's so set in its ways, but you can see it's moving. Once you get more chain on here, you'll eventually be able to kind of, you know, rub this thing over some Delrin, rub it over a wooden dowel rod, and you'd get it back to being pretty smooth. Again, just like with the woven chain videos that I showed, I rub these in one direction. I don't loosen them up in one direction and then rotate it and then rotate it, because what happens is when you do that, then the chain wants to not hang quite right. It gets kind of weird. Anyway, that's just something that I've kind of found. Sorry, my nose is running. It's allergy season. So that's the finished chain, and then this is kind of what it looks like right after I pulled it down. I probably would have to anneal it. You can anneal this chain, just be careful. Bushy flame, okay? Don't use the, you know, a fine exact tip for soldering on in this instance, because it's just going to nuke right through the chain because it's fine silver. Anyway, that's it. I will put some links in the YouTube video at the end, down in the information, if you need to find my work on Facebook, so you can go look at some finished pieces. But other than that, if you have any questions, feel free to comment and ask me questions. Thanks.